A few months ago, I did a really deep study into Revelation, particularly the seven churches. And for those who don't know, the seven churches are represented by seven cities in the Roman Empire. And so city-states. And this was a really interesting study for me. And there's definitely, I believe absolutely there are spiritual representations of these churches, heart postures. I think all of that is a thing. But these were, just so if you don't know, these were real cities in the Roman Empire at the time, the first century church. The book of Revelation, most scholars believe it was in between 90 and 100 AD that it was written by John the Apostle. So today I want to speak about particularly the church of Pergamum. So let me just go ahead and read the passage real fast and then we'll kind of get into it. So, to the angel of the church in Pergamum I write, these are the words of him who has the sharp double-edged sword. I know where you live, where Satan has his throne, yet you remain true to my name. You did not renounce your faith in me, even in the days of Antipas, my faithful witness, who was put to death in your city where Satan lives. That is very interesting, I thought, when I first read that. I was like, why in the world would God have John write that this city of Pergamum is where Satan rested his head? That's like, it doesn't say that for any of the other seven churches. That's a wild thing to say, and I really wanted to know the answer to that. And like I said, I've said before, if you really want to know, and you want to know for the right reasons, and it's not to be smarter than everybody, and it's not for your own selfish ambition, if you really want to know what this book has to say, God will not let you move on to the next verse until you know. And it's a game between me and him. Like, I'll sit for 3 days straight, 14 hours each one of these days. And I'm not joking. I will do that until he gives me the answer to something. And he's always faithful to do it. So I wanted to know, why is the church of Pergamum said to be where Satan has his throne? So every city-state in the Roman Empire had what was called a patron god. And so they were pagans, of course. And so each city, and sometimes there were more than one. Oddly enough, there were some cities where two patron gods were supposed to be battling it out, like one in between a mountain and the sea, and so it was Poseidon versus Zeus. That was Greek. But this city of Pergamum, the patron god was a god called Asclepius. Asclepius was the god of knowledge and healing. So like physical, carnal healing. If you had some kind of illness, and people would come from all around the Roman Empire, all over, hundreds of miles, to come to his temple to hopefully be healed by the god. And the way they did that, the way they determined whether you were going to be healed or not, was that the temple was very large, and they would have no torches lit in the main sanctuary of that temple. And what would happen was people who wanted healing, they would come and sleep on the floor of his temple, and then snakes would be let loose. I don't know how many. And they would be slithering around the pitch dark floor. And it was said that if you were touched by one of the serpents in that temple, that was being touched by the god himself, and that you would be healed of your illness. So Asclepius, they've unearthed statue and recreated things. It was statues of Asclepius, and it was a man with a giant staff with a snake wrapped around it. And we'll get into a little bit more of that here in a second. But first, I want to talk about the symbolism of being a god of knowledge and healing. What is earthly healing? If you have a terminal disease, what are you looking for if you were to go to Asclepius? You're looking to be saved. So it is an earthly salvation. The people came from all around the Roman Empire to this god with a snake wrapped around his staff. They were looking for a salvation. And guess what else? Knowledge. And what did Satan tell Eve in the garden? She ate from the fruit of the tree of knowledge. And Satan didn't say, hey, come follow me, I'm evil. He said, if you had the knowledge God had, you could be your own God. You could be God. And that's what God doesn't want. He It was quite the little lie in a couple sentences. And so Asclepius, the God of knowledge and salvation, which is the argument of the garden put together. Knowledge will save you. Your salvation lies in the power that knowledge gives you. And now, the staff with a snake wrapped around it. Can you think of where you've seen that before? And this is not, you can look into secular history to get this answer. That is where we get our medical symbol. It actually is. Nobody's hiding that fact. It used to be a staff with one snake wrapped around it. Now it's two snakes wrapped around it with the wings. But that is where we get the caducees. The Sadducees, I don't know how to say that actually. I just read a lot, I don't talk a lot about it, but that is where we get that symbol. A staff with a snake wrapped around it comes from the Roman city of Pergamum and the god of healing Asclepius. So, where Satan lives. So I do take that to mean that that is where the spirit of Satan, the entity, resided at the time. So this was quite the city to start a church in, I imagine. They all were at this time. If we got the possible COVID restrictions were bad, that was not a drop in the hat compared to what they were dealing with in the first century church in the Roman Empire. You weren't allowed to have a job, a career. I mean, it was very quickly that escalated. So I also want to talk about one more very symbolic thing. Another place where you will find the staff of Asclepius, and that is in between the lap of Baphomet, the Baphomet goat. So let's break down the Baphomet goat very quickly. The Baphomet goat is a male goat with female breasts. In his lap is the staff of Asclepius, the staff with the two serpents wrapped around it. And on top of his head is a shining light. So, going back all the way to Genesis, chaos versus order. To create order, God separated man and woman. To create order, God separated land from sea. He separated light from dark. So, what's that saying is God's definition of order is actually two opposites who find a way to come together as one. That's unity. That's and that's God's ultimate goal, right? Ephesians 1:9-10. The mystery of God has been solved. The mystery of His will is and always has been the unification of all things in heaven and earth. And so that's His grand plan. God's grand plan is unity through order. Now look at the Baphomet goat. Male, female, and beast, the mashing together of those three, instead of all of them separate coming together, it's the mashing together of those into one, and that's being called unity. That's being called, what's the staff of Asclepius represent? Salvation through knowledge. So what's that saying is basically, because that's chaos. If you mash together land and sea right now, you have chaos. If you mash together light and dark, you can't do it, but it would be chaos. Mash together male and female. Blink and look into America. Oh, there's no such thing as male and female or gender. And what is that being called? Liberation. Salvation. So it is the mashing together of all the things that God created to create order, and that's being called order. But it's chaos. Chaos is being called order. And that's what the Baphomet goat symbolizes. It symbolizes that mashing together of God's creation and offering it up as a new salvation. Salvation through knowledge. Salvation through this evil's definition of unity, unification. And what is like separating things has almost been villainized even. It's like, oh no, we're all the same. No, we're all different for good reasons. That's the whole point. It's like the body of Christ, we're all separate parts, you know? God's given me this certain spiritual gift and other people have other ones. If there was not a person in my life that had the gift of administration, I'd be screwed. I'd be so screwed right now. Because I'm not good at that. I mean, if I was put in charge of organizing a mission trip, it'd be chaos. It'd be chaos. But if you put me in front of a group of people, I can absolutely delve deep into the knowledge and the wisdom of God. That's what I got. And we all have to be separate to create order and to create unity and to create this perfect thing. And so it's just so interesting because it's almost also in most Baphomet images that you see, it's the same one. He's sitting cross-legged with the staff of Asclepius in between them, doing this, one up, one down, as in heaven, as in earth, whatever. And he's usually gray in color. You know, male goat, female breast, usually gray in color. And what's in between white and black? Light and dark. Gray. Mashing together of male, female, and beast. Gray in color. Can you think of another thing that's the same way? Genderless and gray? Aliens. The movie Alien. Gray in color, genderless, supreme in any way that you can possibly imagine being supreme on this earth, out of this earth, in the heavens. Aliens come from the heavens. So I just thought you guys would like that. Maybe you don't like it. Maybe it's interesting, but it sucks. But now you can kind of look into our culture and see what's happening. It's like, oh, that's why we have chaos. It's because, you know, and we've done this before. So civilizations have had issues with gender before. It's no new trick. But that was the Church of Pergamum, the staff of Asclepius and the Baphomet goat.